we can edit out the beginning later, and then we're going to go on Facebook Live. Aloha and welcome back to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast. I am super excited to be back this week with another amazing guest. So with me today, I have Dr. Mary. She is joining us from California. I'm going to bring her on in just a minute, and we're going to talk all things energy, body wisdom. She has, I think, about 25 years experience in chiropractic. She's lived in overseas and back to Colorado, and I'm super excited to share her wisdom and her journey with you today. So hello, Dr. Mary. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jen. Sincerely, it is my honor to be a guest with you today. So thank you in advance for all that you do and all the healing and the sacred space that you hold for others. So much gratitude. Thank you.
I'm so grateful too. I get really excited. My favorite thing about podcasting is that I get to meet like-minded people, especially women, healers, doctors, leaders in the community, and we speak the same language. We love to talk about body wisdom. You get to bring your experience with, was it like 25 years? Is that?
Yes. Actually going on 30.
30. Okay. 30 years. I feel like when I start to say that, like, how is that really, how are we really here sometimes? But yes, but we're celebrating that, right? We're celebrating a legacy of 30 years of supporting individuals into their well-being with the understanding of not just the physical body, but also the energetic body through the chakras, and really helping to paint the picture of bringing this deeper level of awareness to our listeners on how this is showing up. That, you know, my listeners know the journey that I've shared. My second health crisis back in 2014 was really more an energetic health crisis after having a physical one 8 years earlier. And so I love that we get to have this conversation on just how we can really bring the two together, the energy body, our spirit, our soul, and our physical body. So would you be willing to share a little bit just about you, the work that you've done, and how you got to be where you are today?
I'd love to, but let me first say that I can't take credit for how everything all ended up. I would like to think that my journey has been linear, but it's been anything but linear. I thought I was in control professionally and with my path or my trajectory, but I'm telling you, I was not in control. So to summarize my history, to better understand to how I arrived to who I am today, I graduated at a very young age of 25 years old with my doctorate in chiropractic. And so to make a long story short, I was born hearing impaired, and I was blessed with another gift, and that is I have exceptional hands, meaning that I can pick up physical information, energetic information, just information in general through my psychometry, which was an asset as a chiropractor, because we're one of the last dying professions that actually keeps our hands on patients. And so to make a long story short, I excelled in my business. And I was very grateful and thankful to have the opportunity to have my hands on people. But what ended up happening is that my ego got involved in the business development, got involved within my practice. And so I developed a very kind of a high volume, prestigious practice. And, you know, if that wasn't enough for me, then I had to expand and to do a satellite office. And with each and every single one of these expansions came more staff, more responsibility, and a higher overhead. And so to make a long story short, I worked hard. I worked, and that was my identity as I saw it. Now, I literally was ignoring physical signs. I'm not proud to admit this, but this is part of the journey. I started ignoring cystic acne that started developing on my neck. I ignored a blown cervical disc, a torn rotator cuff. I worked through all of these physical ailments and chose to not take the time off, but to persevere within my profession. And so what ended up happening, and I know you've alluded to this, Jen, in your own journey, that you think that you're having a physical crisis when indeed you're having an energetic or a spiritual crisis. And what I now realize, hindsight is always 2020. When I look back at my physical issues, my energetic body was crying for the opportunity to express itself authentically. And when I say that, please understand, I was practicing in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's a very conservative military and religious hub, for a lot of various different organizations. And so when patients would come into my office, I would share and vocalize the limitations of what it is that I could share. I couldn't share everything, all the information that I was perceiving with their physical and energetic bodies. And it didn't serve anyone. It certainly didn't serve me. And I don't believe that it served my patients. So what ended up happening metabolically, my entire endocrine system decided to shut down. And when it shut down, I went through a healing crisis because I literally was physically flatlined. And when I say flatlined, I'm a person that likes to exercise. That's how I balance my energy systems. And I could no longer exercise. I was going into an integrative physician for weekly Myers cocktails and glutathione injections. And I was working with my sleep-wake cycle. I was trying to embody more of the mind-body principles to heal myself, but I was just faking it. I wasn't getting to the core root of what it was that needed to be changed. And then there was a pivotal evening. I remember it, Jen. I was sitting down with my husband over dinner, and he literally said to me, he said, honey, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for two different reasons. Number one, I'm concerned that if you don't make some changes, you are going to create a terminal illness, number one. And number two, I'm concerned that our marriage won't last. And he's like, so is there space for you to consider leaving your practices behind? And how would you feel if we moved internationally? And my first instincts was like, that's not an option. That's not an option. I put my sweat equity into building these practices, and that's sincerely what I know how to do. So I can't fathom ending that cycle of my life. But as fate has it, he acquired a position in Ho Chi Minh City. And he says, guess what? They want me to start early, mid-year in February. Are you on board or are you not? And so I quickly had to surrender to the fact that, yeah, I'm on board. I love my husband. I will, if this is part of my journey, this is what I'm intended to do. I'm with them. We sold everything. So practices, houses, furniture, everything. And we literally did this within 30 days. And then I found myself, Jen, on the other side of the world in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. I woke up and I was like, wow, that was a whirlwind. And what was that? In fact, what was the last 22 years? What was all that about? And so I went through a huge identity crisis. I was like, who am I? What do I stand for? What's my purpose and why am I still here? What are my next steps? And so I was really experiencing a lot of anxiety and depression around it. So I did what I know how to do. I ran away. So I ran away from Ho Chi Minh City and I went down to Bali, Indonesia, and I enrolled in a yoga teacher's training. Now, I love yoga, and I just knew that, I've never had the time nor the energy to dive into a YTT. So I went down there and studied yoga. And what I realized is that what I enjoyed most about yoga, my personal practice, was the ability to find the integration within the central nervous system, to find that state of stillness in which I could calm my thoughts and listen to my body. So I finished up my YTT, and then I enrolled in a meditation class when I got back to Vietnam. Now I had time on my hands. And so literally I dove into meditation and started to like have some really miraculous discoveries about myself, and my whole perception of what I was viewing environmentally, within my environment, was starting to shift. And so I was like, wow, experientially, I was like, I don't really know what's happening. So I think what I'm going to do is go and get a certification in positive psychology to better understand the neuroscience as to what was happening in my brain, what was happening chemically within my physical body as the direct result of my meditation practice. So off to New York. So I'm living in Vietnam, fly back to New York, do the training with Dr. Tal Ben Shahar, go back to Vietnam, and I'm like lit, I'm on fire. So I'm starting to realize that I knew, as a chiropractor, I knew the human body exceptionally well from the neck on down. And so now, I'm starting to understand psychology. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that happens in between the ears, Let's look at this. What's happening within the brain? And so I dove into that with the understanding that I was looking at what makes some people thrive and some people really struggle in post-traumatic events. And I started to really kind of look at my practice that I had where I was delivering similar services, and there were some people whose central nervous system soaked up that information and they thrived. And then there were some people, about 20% of the people, who had the same kind of service who couldn't integrate that system and they didn't thrive. And so I turned to my husband on to all of the principles of positive psychology. And he's like, this is phenomenal. We need to teach this to educators so that educators can embody it and role model it for students. So then we left Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and we moved to the other side of the world. We left the land of Buddhism and came back to Christianity in Bogota, Colombia. And when I was living in Bogota, we started a nonprofit organization specifically with those tools, positive psychology, meditation, and yoga, teaching those tools to the teachers so that they could embody it and be role models for the kids. Because they have a different philosophy in South America. They believe that you need to invest in the next generation in order to make a cultural shift long term. And so the schools they were very hungry for the information. So as fast as I could create this curriculum, they were translating it into Spanish, and then it was being dispersed around Colombia and in Peru. I had no idea what I was doing or even how I was doing it, but the message, the culture was hungry and thirsty for this information. And, quite honestly, Jen, that satisfied me to a certain extent, but there were a couple of life experiences that happened that led me to believe, okay, I got the body. Now I understand the psyche. There's one more layer. There's an energetic layer when I'm really looking at an integrative, holistic approach to health and wellness that includes the mind, body, and soul. And so then what ended up happening, unfortunately, my mother passed, and then shortly thereafter, my sister passed. And within 5 days, and quite honestly, today is the anniversary 5 years ago in which she passed. And then 5 days after she passed, her husband passed. So it was a series of energetic terminations, if you will, and starting to recognize that we have energetic connections with people. And I will use the word that we have energetic cords with other people. And so finally, I was like, that's it. I'm going to go back to one of my original passions, and I'm going to go back and really embrace the understanding as to what's happening within the electromagnetic field surrounding the physical body. And I enrolled in the Academy of Intuition Medicine in Sausalito, California. So between that coupled with my meditation practice, then my whole world began to expand, and my ability, the information that I was receiving on an intuitive level grew exponentially. So then my awareness and my ability to weave and integrate all of my various different trainings kind of came together in a really organic way. So I know that I told you my journey was not linear. I could not have planned my life events or where I was living or how my life unfolded. I just, here I am now with all of these skills and the ability and the desire, honestly and humbly, to hold space for others in their healing and their transformational journey. So here we are.
Wow. So many things to unpack in what you just shared. Thank you for sharing all of that and just taking us through your own personal and energetic transformation and the choices that you had to make. And, my listeners are no strangers to stories of people being on the show where they have this sort of breakdown and this soul awakening or soul upgrade moment to that question of who I am. And so often, just as you shared, we identify ourselves by what we do, not who we are. And until we have that moment of realization that we're not our body, we're not what we do, we're so much more than that. And so the listeners on the show are no stranger to that. What was really interesting too, that I just noted, is today's the 5th. The anniversary is 5 years ago and 5 days later. So there's a lot of fives in that.
Yep.
That you're sharing. How interesting that what an honor to be having this conversation on this day too, and there is a lot happening energetically right now in the universe as well. And you mentioned a couple things. I'm really interested in diving a little bit deeper. I just want to, a couple of things that you said that I really love that I just want to pause and sort of reiterate for the listeners is I love this concept of Latin America. I'm getting ready to head to Brazil for a couple of weeks with my younger daughter. Well, maybe both my daughters, but I love this idea of culturally investing in the next generation. Like that is my wish for this country, is that we wake up enough to know that not just on a parent level, but on a community level in the school system, that this is a cultural shift that we need to make. And I think that you're able to do that when you shift from surviving to thriving. And that leads me to the next thing that you talked about, which, in every body, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic, astral, like all of the bodies, which are one, it's not really separate. It's all integrated. They're just kind of different layers, I guess you could say. But you said that one thing that you discovered is you were curious of how the benefits of meditation were supporting people. And what you discovered is that 20% of people were not able to fully integrate, and that so they would be more in survival mode versus thriving mode. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit more about that and how it shows up.
Mm-hmm. I will answer from the perspective of the physical body, not from the perspective of psychology. But from the physical body, what I started to notice, and as I was reflecting upon why was this, in 22 years of practice, what I've learned is that there's a big, and it's a buzzword, there's a central nervous system dysregulation that's happening within, it's predominant within people in today's society, where they cannot balance from being in a sympathetic overdrive or a parasympathetic response. And what I mean is people are wired to be in fight or flight. and to shift them to open up the space through the vagus nerve, through the central nervous system, to allow the space for the integration of the parasympathetic for the rest and digest response within the body is very prominent. More people need it. It's just a matter of providing the wisdom and the access for people.
Yes. And I know as you're speaking about it, I'm reflecting on even some podcast episodes that I've done around this, just for the listeners to go back and listen to, if this is you, in the simple terms of like, our bodies cannot even physically assimilate nutrients from healthy foods if we're in fight or flight. Like, it's super important to be in a relaxed state. And our culture is, I mean, people are eating in the cars and they're eating on the go, and they're eating very quickly because their kids have activities. This is really a cultural shift that needs to happen, and learn the understanding of like, when your body is in fight or flight. Tell us a little bit about how that's impacting people and how that's showing up, because it's impacting relationships, it's impacting health, it's impacting cognitive thinking. Tell us what trends in your experience that you have seen over the years and where you see us going.
That's a great question, Jen. Now I'm going to change hats again, and I'm going to answer this question from an energetic perspective. And when I find, and I see this to be pretty unanimous across my practice, both from a chiropractic standpoint and from as a medical intuitive as well, and that is when people are wired neurologically to be in fight or flight or in sympathetic dominance, I see people unable to ground energetically into the frequency of the earth. And so what I mean is that which intimately involves their first chakra. And you look at the themes behind the first chakra being all revolving around survival and trusting that you will always be cared for and provided for, regardless what happens, and being able to surrender into the state of the unknown when it comes to transitions or challenges within our lives. I find that when people are in sympathetic dominance, they hold their energy up. They literally pull the arches away from the physical floor. They squeeze their bum. They hold the energy and they spiral it up. They are very resistant to allowing their energetic system to meet and greet the frequency of the earth. And the reason that that's so important is that the earth frequency, and I know that you and I are in 100% agreement when I say this, the earth's frequency is the most sustainable, the most nurturing and compassionate energy that we have available to us as humans. And so that's what I see, in my opinion, my humble opinion, that when we're so disconnected and that we're so sympathetically dominant and driven, that we're disconnecting from the earth and we're disconnecting from a natural resource. And I believe that to be very, very, very detrimental.
I 100% agree. And I also want to say that yes, the importance of grounding and allowing yourself to be resourced by the most sustainable resource available to all of us can be done in so many ways, but it's really the intention of giving yourself permission to just be present while you're walking the dog or, walking, it really can be those simple things. And there are also so many little things that you can do. We both have plants behind us, crystals, rocks, not giving our power away to them, but just surrounding yourself with the elements of nature to really just allow yourself to be supported. The sun, the ocean, the mountains is 100% my medicine. And also food, really thinking about the frequency and the energy of food. Some foods are more grounding than others. Think about where they grow from. Like potatoes are grounding. They literally are roots in the earth. Mushrooms, I feel like, are in the earth, but they're also a very high frequency, intelligent food to eat. But you think about the energy of fruits, right? They grow in a tree. So they're a little bit higher vibration and frequency. So I know for me personally, as someone who studied integrative health and nutrition and supported many women through that through many years, that was always a conversation too, is number one, your body doesn't absorb and assimilate nutrients if you specifically in both ways, whether you're struggling to gain weight or struggling to lose weight, there's a lot of energy in that, releasing energy to allow yourself to create space to properly nourish. If you're trying to lose weight, if you're wanting to gain weight and you're sort of on that failure to thrive edge, it's really being in that relaxed state so that the healthy nourishment that you receive can be assimilated and used in the body properly so that you can have strength and build muscle and bone density. And also just thinking about the energy of the food that you eat, the relationships that you're in, the music that you listen to, the things that you tell yourself, the emotions that you experience, what you choose to watch on TV, if you choose to do that, what you choose to listen to, the media coverage that you choose to listen to, all of that impacts, it has a frequency and impacts our well-being. And you and I talked the other day about, and so I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there because I know that I only have like 20 more minutes with you and there's so much that I want you to share with people. So I'm going to go right into the themes. Now, I've worked with women for almost 15 years, and the themes that I have seen and sort of like the epidemic or, sort of the thing that we've been in as long as I've been working, and I've been managing myself or in two areas, two chakras, really kind of three, but what I have seen is sacral chakra. So we're talking about the second one up, which is, the area below the belly button. It's the area of creation for women, creativity, joy, abundance is the color orange. And there's a lot of blockages there, infertility. There is also a lot of trauma that women hold there that it is just there, either creating irregular cycles or hormonal imbalance. So I see a lot of that. And then I do see a little bit of the solar plexus. Specifically, when I see the solar plexus, it is very late stage personally. And I'm wondering what you've seen in this, but it's usually, we're talking like the gallbladder has to be taken out, or, I myself had liver failure. There's like gut issues. I mean, these are pretty impacted experiences within the body. But then the other thing that I have seen for 15 years, whether I was doing nutrition or life coaching, and I'm a person who sees energy. So I'm just speaking in terms of like how I see this, is the thyroid. And so many women that I know and I've worked with and supported, and in my own second energetic health crisis was a thyroid health crisis. And I never went on medication for it. I was able to work through it. That was when I shifted everything to do my yoga teacher training, do meditation and breath work. And really, I had an overactive thyroid that had a lot to do with not speaking my truth as a 7-year-old. Like, I've done so much work around this, but I just wanted to share, those are sort of the themes that I've seen. Can you share some of your wisdom, your experience on if you relate to that and what you've seen and what you think it means about where we're going as a collective? And I'm speaking more specifically to women, although I know men have the similar things too, but would you be willing to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be honored. It's one of my passions, actually. I'll talk about the themes. You brought it up. So let's start with let's connect the second and the fifth. So the second chakra and the fifth chakra. And as Jen just noted, that the sacral chakra or the second chakra is located just below the navel or the belly button. And when we look at this energy center, it revolves around, obviously, because it is intimately connected with the lumbar plexus. It innervates into the reproductive organs, whether it be the ovaries or the testes in a man. That's neurologically where the energy system is revolving around. But the themes are overall creativity, whether it's the creation of another human being or creativity on many, many different levels. The reason that I'm talking about the second chakra is that it is also the area in which we receive clairsentient information. And so what I mean by that, Jenna, is the ability to receive information just by walking into a room. Like, let's say you go to a dinner party, you sit down, you've got a group of 8 people, and all of a sudden you're feeling everything that, has been happening within, energetically and emotionally within those people at the dinner party. Or let's just say that you sit down with your best friend and have a cup of tea, and then all of a sudden your best friend is processing something heavy, like whether it be a divorce or a miscarriage or something heavy, and then you walk away from that encounter and you're feeling the energy that she was sharing with you. And I think as women, and I'll just speak generally, that we are the caretakers of the world. We're supposed to make everything okay for all people at all times, which is very unrealistic. It's a very unrealistic expectation, but as you look at women with their roles of being a mother or being a wife, or also then being the caretaker of our parents. And so consequently, that unrealistic expectation is, well, if somebody's experiencing a challenge, I'm going to help them. And healers are notorious for doing this. I have space. I can carry that energy for you. And they end up housing it within the second chakra. Okay. Now, this is the center of empathy. So you can be empathetic with a person, but choose not to carry that other person's energy. And if you really look at it, if you choose to carry somebody else's energy and house it as your own, you are essentially robbing the other person of their own journey. So it does not serve them. You think that you're doing them a favor, but in reality, you are not. So you take the second chakra, which ends up, you house other people's energies within that energy center. And then you start to realize that maybe that's an area of weight gain, or maybe this is an area of congestion, or maybe it's an area of hormonal imbalance for you. Those are physical symptoms that something is imbalanced within the energetic system, which ultimately is affecting the physical system. That's the fifth chakra. Couple it with, now remember, you can't look at the energetic body as separate, identifiable, first chakra and then second chakra and third and fourth, because they're all levels of consciousness as you move up through the energy system. And generally speaking, the lower 3 are related to the physical body and the egoic body. The fourth chakra ends up being a bridge between the physical and the spiritual, and then the upper ones connect into the spiritual domain. So as I bridge the connection between the second chakra and then connecting in with the throat chakra, so then what ends up happening is that if creativity is the source of your second chakra and the origin of the fifth chakra is associated with authentic expression, then the women, specifically, I'm generalizing men, I'm sorry, it can happen to you as well, but essentially you get compromised in your ability to authentically express your essence. And that can show up again. The endocrine system that gets involved is the thyroid issues. You have cervical nerve plexus. So you have issues related to anything that travels from the neck, shoulders, elbows, arms, and wrists. Those can be physical symptoms, or the jaw and the teeth can be physical symptoms as a malfunctioning within the fifth chakra. Now, I just gave you kind of a superficial view, but what gets coupled with that authentic expression is also a professional expression and kind of your homing device located on the backside of the fifth chakra. And so that can intimately affect your direct voice. In energy, the voice, the sound, the word, the expression, all carry energy. So if you're not aligned in the creativity within the second, connected with the expression within the fifth, that is going to compromise your ability to tap into your original essence and thus allow it to be able to flow And again, your expression can be any way you want it to be, whether it would be voice, through dance, through words, through art, through action. It can show up in many different ways. But the challenge that I've seen collectively, you asked, what is the overextended second chakra, because you're carrying excessive other people's energy, and the underdevelopment of the fifth due to the repression of expression. I see that a lot. And to clear the second takes determination. That really takes a commitment to a couple of different things. Number one, allowing and gifting back the other people's energy and get reconnected with intimately connected with your own life force energy. And then to be able to establish firm boundaries for the container of your own personal energy. And if you sense a lot of determination in my words when I say that, is that that's my desire for all people in general, but most specifically for women.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Whoever is listening to this episode, I hope that you go back and listen to the past 10 minutes again, and allow yourself to really receive what Dr. Mary just shared more than once, because I feel like you'll give yourself permission to integrate, even if you don't understand everything that she's saying. On some level, I believe that the frequency of what she's saying will be integrated in your body. I just know it. I can feel it. And so I say that with conviction. And to anyone who is listening, who is a healer of any capacity, and I don't mean that you're even you're just the person that people just go to when they need something or they trust. And now I'm noticing my throat. It's so interesting when we get in this conversation. But if you know, I have so many conversations with women. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be in any profession, and you have really low energy, or you know that you feel sensitive and that you might be empathic. I would invite you to listen to my episode, The Wounded Badge of Empathy. It's super important to be able to be in your own sovereign, healthy energy and really understand why you're taking on other people's energy, either consciously or subconsciously, so that you can show up better for the people around you. And Dr. Mary, I know you and I have both been through how that can impact it. For us, it impacted our health. For others, it may impact your marriage or your ability to really show up in your truth, which is your voice. It could be the simplest thing, like being in a healthy marriage, or asking for what you need in your friendships or at work, those types of things. If you feel imbalanced in that area, then aside from the grounding and supporting yourself, and it all matters when you do this inner work, it's important that you do allow yourself to be resourced and grounded by what is so plentiful by earth when you do this inner work, because you will be excavating, you will be releasing, and it is important to energetically and physically and emotionally nourish yourself and to have support multidimensionally. What I wanted to kind of recap what I heard you say is, or what I didn't hear you say, but what I gathered from what you said is kind of bringing full circle where we started this conversation with your personal story. The listeners know my personal story. That I'm just going to go ahead and just say, first of all, thank you for sharing that clairsentience is in the sacral chakra, because that's our in one of, there's 4 to 6 different types of intuition. I'm sure you could go deeper on that. Clairsentience is a knowing a feeling, correct? So it's that noticing it coming from the sacral, and we all have access to that. And I always get asked the question, what happens, or I get asked the question, and women confirm to me that what happens when you are committed to releasing these things that no longer serve you, whatever it is, the unhealthy empathy, the overworking, the overwhelm, or constantly being addicted to fight or flight, that when we are committed to, you said intimacy, personal intimacy in the sacral chakra, when into me I see, when we're committed to that, I can't put it into words other than just say that the truth is that you create space for creative life force energy. And whatever that looks like for you, whatever it looks like for you as an individual, I see it happen to women in their, 60s, 70s, 20s, 30s, 40s. There's this thing that happens energetically. Your body is only meant to hold, so much energy, just like your house, right? It's like, you don't want clutter. So you want to get rid of the stuff that isn't serving you. And in a sense, like you sort of expand to a new level or a new frequency or vibration. And often what I see is this, I've had women like write books, like, I'm just going to write a book in my 60s because I like, all of a sudden I feel creative enough to do this, or I'm going to, create this fun thing, or I'm going to plan this fun trip. You get this life force energy in you that just gives you a boost of creative, just life force to do and continue in this new chapter of life, to come full circle where you started with your personal story. And what I'm seeing now, the way that I put it is, when we're talking about that sacral, when we're in overwhelm, when we're addicted to the doing and not the being, when we're completely identified by what we do, when we're pushing, I've made a really conscious effort to no longer push. If something's a push, it's a no. Like, that's just where I'm at in life. And I don't have to explain myself, and that feels great. But if we're pushing, and this is so many women close to that breakdown. I've been having conversations for 5 years, hoping to plant seeds that you'll take away things before the breakdown. If you get to the breakdown, it was your soul journey. Your body is in pain. It's talking to you. Your marriage is on the rocks. You're unhappy in your job. Those are signs something wants to shift, and it's time to listen to your body wisdom. But when we're constantly addicted to overwhelm, we are not open to receiving. We're not open to receiving energy, life force energy, nourishment from the earth, from others, even from healers. You mentioned early on in your story, you were doing the things, the Myers cocktail, like you were doing like glutathione, but your body wasn't fully receiving it. So I want people to really hear this message. You can, quote, do all the things. You can do IV therapy. You can eat healthy. You can, quote, do all the things. If you don't really align yourself to a natural state of being, that frequency of being relaxed and resourced. And I'm not talking about scheduling 5 days of workout a week and juicing every day. I've been there and done that. And guess what? Still had a second health crisis. Like, I'm talking about pure acceptance of where you are until you're in that state of receiving. And I'll tell you what it takes. It takes trust. It takes the ultimate act of trust to be fully vulnerable, to open yourself up to receiving, so that you can start to thrive. You said early on, you would see people in survival and thriving. This is how you get there. You stop the overwhelm, start being, less doing, open up to receive, trust. You live in that state of consciousness. I talk about prosperity a lot. It's embodied trust. And you're going to see, now, Dr. Mary and I have already done this. This is why we're encouraging you. It actually starts to get easier because you start to embody everything that you've been learning. It's no longer separate from you. You start to every day make those little changes. I remember 10 years ago, I meditated 20 minutes a day. I don't have to do that anymore. I live in a meditation not every day, but it's a little bit more part of who I am now. It's intention every day. And the more that you do that and that you're willing to commit, the more you integrate, which was the word that you said, that 20% of people that were in survival weren't fully integrated. And so it does start with little things. It starts with an undoing, an unbecoming, and with really small little things, nutritionally being open to receive, getting yourself some support. And I want to encourage everybody on the show who's listening. My hope and goal for today, and why I wanted to bring Dr. Mary here, is because if you've been struggling physically, mentally, and emotionally, and there's something else, and that's why we're having the conversation around your energy body. you're here, you're listening because you've been to all the specialists, and there's a place for Western medicine, 100%, absolutely. I'm just talking to the person who is maybe open to the idea that there's something else that their body needs and they can feel it right now. Dr. Mary, practitioners, people, healers like her, look for someone like that for your support. I'm giving you permission with this conversation to know that there can be more support for you. There can be more. If you haven't gotten answers, don't give up. Find someone, slow your life down, listen to your body, and just be curious about all of the experiences and the way they've impacted your physical body. By the time some discomfort comes to the physical body, it's been there for a long time. And the body is trying to wake you up. So you can shift it. You can reverse that all the way back out to the different layers of the energy body. You can do that. By the time it's in the physical body and you're uncomfortable, if you want to shift something, you can do that and find support. So thank you for coming to my mini little TED Talk and just sharing this time with me. I really love that I get to have a conversation with somebody who shares the same values and the same views and also has 30 years experience, not just small experience, everything from going to Vietnam to creating that nonprofit in Colombia. It's super awesome. What are you shifting into next? How are you serving your community now for the listeners if they want to find you and learn more about you?
Yes. Well, the easiest place to answer your question directly, the easiest place to connect with me is via my website, which is www.drmarysanders.com. Now, I'm at a point in my life where my choices of what I do next always align with how I can support others in their own personal transformation in using the wisdom and the voice that I have acquired. So whether that is leading retreats in Mexico or Costa Rica or Peru, or leading a yoga class down the street on Pearl, I show up in all of my actions. The intention is to be of service for people in their own personal transformation. So if my actions are not aligning with what my purpose is, chances are it won't be very long-lived and that it'll fizzle back and I have to come back to self. So that's my constant truth from my own being. That's what I get to align with. So my actions, supporting others remotely with intuition medicine or supporting groups in overcoming burnout. I always bring it back to the energetic body because that's where it starts.
And you have a podcast, which I shared in the bio, Energy Medicine.
I love doing my podcast for the exact same reasons that you do, Jen. It gives me an opportunity to connect with and to intimately converse with people, like-minded people who share the same frequency, the same desires for the collective. I feel good after I connect with these individuals, and it's just that upward energetic spiral that we're looking for. So yes, Energy Medicine, where we talk about all things that align the mind, body, and spirit.
I know we're coming to a close and you have an appointment to get to. I want to just give you an opportunity to share what the benefit of a medical intuitive and how I know all of your experience and bringing intuition into it. How does that support someone differently?
That's a great question. In a few short words, I support others by creating an incredible grounding field which sets the entrainment frequency in order to support you and your spirit living within your human home. So my intention is to deliver information that is necessary in current time for you and your healing journey. So your spirit revealed that information to me, and it is my job to hold that sacred space in a non-witness, non-judgmental way and communicate that information back to you. The information is for you, meaning it makes no intellectual sense to me, but it seemed to make sense to the person receiving the message. So that is what is the impetus for the transformational healing. We clear the blocks, we transform them, we fill it back up with the triad of healing energy, not only earth energy and kundalini energy and life force energy. We reclaim all pieces of your aspect to align with your spirit, with your soul.
I love that so much. And this is perfect for someone who is needs a little bit of a deeper understanding of what's happening. They've tried many things and they're just feeling like they're not maybe getting the support they want from whoever is currently helping them. You're able to tap into that intuition and help them uniquely with their soul blueprint. So Dr. Mary, it's been a pleasure. It's been so amazing to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your insights. And to all the listeners, I will be sharing her link so that you can find her. And is there anything else that you'd like to share before you go?
Nothing I want to share other than my extreme gratitude. Extreme gratitude to all those listeners who are primed and ready and willing to receive the information. And may you find the courage to make to reach out for support so that you can undergo the personal transformation. And to you, Jen, for stepping into your essence and holding space for other people's healings as well. So much gratitude to all of those that are listening, and to you.
Well, thank you. I am receiving, and I'm super grateful that you were able to be on the show as well. So thank you to all the listeners. Thank you, Dr. Mary. And thank you to everyone who's listening on the show. Have a wonderful day. Aloha. All right.